I am Natalie, 27 years old, raised in what appeared to be a picture-perfect family in suburban Connecticut. Nobody would have guessed that my sister would attack me so brutally that I ended up with 3 broken ribs and a fractured wrist. When my father said we will deal with this at home, I never imagined hospital x-rays would become evidence, exposing every dark secret my family had carefully buried for decades. The truth always finds a way to surface. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you have ever had to stand up to family for the sake of your own safety, growing up in our white colonial house with black shutters in Fairfield County, Connecticut, we were the definition of upper-middle-class American prosperity. My father, Richard, was a corporate lawyer with a prestigious firm in New York City, commuting daily in his polished BMW. My mother, Eleanor, maintained her position as a socialite, hosting garden parties and serving on countless charity boards to anyone looking in. We were enviable. The Hamiltons have it all. Neighbors would say, admiring our manicured lawn and my parents' seemingly perfect marriage. But inside those pristine walls, a different reality existed. My sister Vanessa, 2 years older at 29, had always been the golden child with her straight-A grades, field hockey trophies, and my mother's exact shade of caramel hair. She could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, was perpetually falling short of expectations. "Natalie, why can you not be more like your sister?" This refrain followed me throughout childhood, an impossible standard I could never reach. The earliest memory I have of Vanessa's troubling behavior was when I was 6. I had spent hours on an art project for school, a diorama of the solar system. I was immensely proud of the morning. I was supposed to take it to school. I found it destroyed planets crushed and scattered across my bedroom floor. Vanessa did this. I cried to my parents, devastated. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. "You should not have left it out where it could get damaged. This is a learning experience about responsibility." Even as a child, I recognized the injustice. But I learned quickly that in our house, Vanessa was untouchable. When she borrowed my belongings, without asking, returning them damaged, if at all. I was told to be more generous when she had explosive temper tantrums, throwing things and screaming until she got her way. My parents called it her passionate nature. "Your sister feels things deeply." My mother would explain as if this excused all behavior. By the time we reached our teenage years, the pattern was firmly established. When Vanessa shoved me into a wall during an argument when she was 16, leaving a bruise on my shoulder blade, my parents dismissed it as sisters fighting. When she destroyed my prom dress after I was asked to prom, before she was, my parents bought me a new one but never addressed her actions. "That is just how sisters are," they would say, refusing to acknowledge the growing aggression. "You know how to push her buttons." College became my escape. I chose Boston University, 3 hours away, far enough to breathe, but close enough for occasional, obligatory visits home. I thrived there, making genuine friends who valued me, including my best friend Zoe. After graduation, I built a life in Boston as an editor at a small publishing house, creating the independence I had craved. Then came the layoffs. Publishing was hit hard, and as one of the newer employees, I was let go. After 3 months of unsuccessful job hunting and dwindling savings, I faced the decision I had dreaded, moving back home temporarily. "Of course you can come home," my mother said when I called her voice, carrying an undercurrent of judgment. "We have always said this house will be here for you." When things do not work out, the condescension was clear, but I had few options. I moved back, planning to stay just long enough to find a new job and replenish my savings. What I had not factored in was Vanessa. At 29, she still lived at home, working at a local art gallery, a job my father had secured through connections. The position was largely ceremonial, allowing her plenty of time to shop, socialize, and date Jake, her boyfriend of 8 months. My return clearly threatened the comfortable dynamic. Vanessa's cold reception made it clear. She resented my presence in what she had come to view as her domain. "How long are you planning to mooch off Mom and Dad?" she asked. My first night back, cornering me in the kitchen, "Just until I find another job," I assured her, trying to keep the peace. She scoffed. "Good luck with that. In this economy, maybe you should have chosen a more practical career." I ignored the bar, retreating to my childhood bedroom, now converted to a guest room, with all traces of my personality erased. I spent my days applying for jobs, scheduling interviews, and avoiding Vanessa as much as possible. This uneasy truce might have held if not for Jake breaking up with Vanessa 3 weeks after my return. That was the match that lit the fuse leading to the explosion that would change everything. The day of the attack started like any other during my unwanted sabbatical at my parents' house. I woke early, reviewed job listings, and sent out 2 applications before heading downstairs for breakfast. The house was quiet. My father had already left for work, and my mother was at her weekly tennis game. Vanessa, never an early riser, was still asleep. I made coffee and toast, enjoying the rare peace. Today, I had a video interview scheduled for a promising position at a Boston publishing house, and afterward plans to meet Zoe, who was driving down from Boston to see me. Things were looking up by 10 in the morning. I was dressed in a navy blue blouse, my lucky interview outfit hair pulled back neatly, ready to present my professional self to potential employers. The interview went well. The hiring manager ending with, "We will be in touch soon, Natalie. Your experience is exactly what we are looking for." Hope buoyed me as I headed downstairs, phone in hand, to text Zoe. The good news, that is when I heard the front door slam and Vanessa's unmistakable sobbing. She stormed into the kitchen, mascara streaking down her face, and threw her purse onto the counter, with such force that a vase of flowers toppled over water, spreading across the marble. "He ended it?" she wailed, not even acknowledging my presence. "Jake ended it in the middle of the cafe in front of everyone." My mother had arrived home minutes before, and she rushed to Vanessa, arms outstretched. "Oh, darling, what happened?" For the next hour, I faded into the background as Vanessa recounted every detail of the breakup, my mother making appropriate noises of outrage and sympathy. When my father came home early, summoned by my mother's urgent text, the family mobilization was complete. "That young man never deserved you," my father declared, pouring Vanessa a glass of wine. "Despite it being barely noon, he will regret this. I promise you dinner." That evening was all about Vanessa. My mother prepared her favorite meal, roast chicken with lemon and rosemary. My father opened an expensive bottle of Cabernet. The conversation revolved entirely around strategies to make Jake realize his terrible mistake. Perhaps I could speak to his father. My father suggested we play golf together at the club, or we could invite him to the charity gala next month. My mother added, "When he sees you in that new dress we bought." I sat quietly pushing food around my plate, thinking of the many times my own heartbreaks had been met with, "You will get over it, and there are more fish in the sea." As my parents continued their campaign to restore Vanessa's relationship, I found myself speaking without thinking. "Maybe this is a pattern worth examining," I said. "This is the 3rd relationship that has ended because the guy felt overwhelmed." The table fell silent. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me in disbelief. "What exactly are you implying?" Vanessa asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I should have backtracked, but years of swallowed words pushed forward. "Just that. Maybe there is a reason your relationships follow this pattern. Jake mentioned feeling suffocated just like Michael did, and David before him." Vanessa's face contorted. "You jealous bitch," she spat. "You have always been jealous of me. Just because you cannot keep a job or a boyfriend, you want to tear me down, Vanessa." Language, my mother murmured, but there was no real rebuke. "You think you are so smart coming back here with your failure of a life judging me?" Vanessa continued, rising from her chair. "You have no idea what my relationship was like. You have no right to analyze me. I will make you sorry you ever opened your mouth." My father cleared his throat. "Natalie, I think you owe your sister an apology. She is going through a difficult time, and your comments are not helpful." Of course, even now at 27 years old, I was expected to bend to accommodate Vanessa's feelings, regardless of facts or fairness. "I am not apologizing for making an observation," I said, standing up. "I am going to my room." I retreated upstairs, heart pounding, knowing I had broken the unspoken family rule, never challenged Vanessa. I heard my parents downstairs, soothing her, validating her anger. The familiar dynamic was exhausting. Later that evening, I needed to use the bathroom before bed. I opened my bedroom door, cautiously listening. The house seemed quiet. My parents had retired to their room, and Vanessa's door was closed. I padded down the hallway to the bathroom we had shared as children. As I emerged 10 minutes later, Vanessa was waiting, leaning against the wall opposite the bathroom door. Her eyes were red but dry, her expression eerily calm. "Did you enjoy humiliating me at dinner?" she asked conversationally. "I was not trying to humiliate you," I replied, attempting to move past her toward my room. "I just think maybe there are patterns worth looking at." She blocked my path. Always the smart one, right? Always so insightful about everyone else's problems. While your life is a complete disaster, please move. "Vanessa, I'm not doing this tonight. Did it make you feel good to kick me when I'm down? Is that it? You're pathetic. Life is such a disappointment that you have to try to make mine look bad too." I took a deep breath. "Move now." Something flashed in her eyes. Something I had seen before, but never quite this intense. "Make me," she whispered. I tried to step around her, but she moved with me, blocking my way. When I attempted to gently push past, she grabbed my wrist, twisting hard. "Vanessa, stop. You are hurting me. Poor little Natalie." Always the victim, she mocked, twisting harder, always wanting attention. I yanked my arm free and shoved her shoulder harder than I intended. She stumbled back a step, and for a moment, shock registered on her face. Then it transformed into pure rage. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Vanessa lunged forward, both hands connecting with my chest. The force sent me backward. My foot caught on the hall. "Runner!" I felt nothing beneath me as I tumbled down the hardwood staircase. A sickening series of impacts as my body bounced against the steps. The landing at the bottom was a moment of stunned silence. The air knocked from my lungs before I could process what had happened. Vanessa was there, standing over me. "Get up!" she hissed. "Stop being so dramatic!" I could not speak. I could not move. The pain was beginning to register sharp and overwhelming in my side and wrist. When I did not respond, something in Vanessa snapped further. She drew back her foot and kicked me directly in the ribs. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact sent fresh agony through my body. "Vanessa!" My father's voice boomed from the top of the stairs. "What is happening down there?" My parents rushed down, my mother in her silk pajamas, my father in his robe. They took in the scene, me curled on the floor, Vanessa standing over me. "She fell," Vanessa said immediately. She was being dramatic and slipped. I tried to speak to contradict the lie, but could only manage a whimper of pain. She pushed me. I finally gasped, and then she kicked me when I was down. My father looked from me to Vanessa, doubt clear in his expression. My mother knelt beside me, her hand hovering uncertainly. "I am sure it was an accident," she said. "Were you running in the hallway again, Natalie? You know those socks are slippery on the hardwood." I was 37, not 7 yet. Here was my mother creating a narrative where this was somehow my fault. The injustice of it all would have made me cry if breathing did not hurt so much. "Call an ambulance," I managed to say. "I think something is broken." My father shook his head. "No need for all that drama. If you really are injured, I will drive you to the hospital." In that moment, as I lay in excruciating pain while my sister stood unpunished and my parents prepared to minimize what had happened, I realized with perfect clarity that nothing would ever change unless I made it change. "Can you stand?" my mother asked finally, extending her hand to help me up. The movement sent shards of pain through my ribcage. I cried out, collapsing back to the floor. "Maybe just a bruise," my father suggested, looking uncomfortable. "Eleanor, get some ice." My mother hurried to the kitchen while my father turned to Vanessa. "Go to your room. We will sort this out." Vanessa hesitated, a flicker of worry finally crossing her face as she registered the severity of my condition. Without a word, she turned and climbed the stairs, disappearing into her bedroom. My mother returned with an ice pack wrapped in a kitchen towel. "Here, put this on wherever it hurts," she said, vaguely, clearly at a loss. "I need to go to the hospital," I insisted through gritted teeth. Now my parents exchanged a look I had seen countless times growing up. Their silent communication, deciding how to minimize damage. "Let us not overreact," my father said. "Rest tonight. And if it still hurts in the morning, I cannot even stand up." I interrupted, anger giving me strength. "I need an X-ray. My ribs are broken." Another look passed between them. "All right," my father finally conceded. "But Natalie, this was clearly an accident. You tripped and fell down the stairs. That is what happened." Even now, with me injured on the floor, their priority was protecting Vanessa. She pushed me, I said firmly, and then she kicked me repeatedly. My father's expression hardened. That is not what happened, and that is not what we are going to tell the hospital. Do you understand? We will deal with this at home later. My mother nodded. Think of your sister's future, Natalie. An assault charge would ruin her prospects. Of course, Vanessa's prospects always. Vanessa. My father helped me to the car, each movement agony. My mother stayed behind, ostensibly to look after Vanessa, who apparently needed comforting after assaulting me. As my father backed out of the driveway, he began rehearsing the story. You were rushing to answer the phone, missed a step and fell. Simple accident. Happens all the time. I stared out the window, tears streaming silently down my face. Natalie, are you listening to me? He demanded. This family has a reputation in this community. I will not have it damaged by some sisterly squabble blown out of proportion. Squabble, I echoed incredulously. She could have killed me. Do not be melodramatic, he snapped. This is exactly why we need to contain this situation. Your tendency to exaggerate would only hurt everyone involved. The 15-minute drive to Greenwich Hospital felt eternal. My father filled it with alternating threats and appeals to family loyalty. If you say anything different to the doctors, you will destroy your sister's life. Is that what you want? After everything we have done for you, taking you back in when you failed in Boston, by the time we arrived at the emergency room, I had heard every version of why I owed my family. My silence. We were met by a triage nurse who took my information, while my father hovered, interjecting the phone call misstep story at every opportunity. She has always been clumsy, he added with a forced chuckle. That made me want to scream. The nurse Susan, according to her name tag, looked at me rather than my father. Can you rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? 8, I said, honestly. She nodded. Making notes, and the fall occurred. How long ago? About 40 minutes, I replied. And you say you tripped while rushing to answer the phone. She asked, her pen poised. I hesitated, feeling my father's eyes boring into me. That is what happened. I managed hating myself for the lie. Nurse Susan's expression revealed nothing, but she held my gaze a moment longer than necessary. We will need to take some x-rays, sir. You can wait in the general waiting area while we take your daughter back. I should stay with her, my father insisted. Hospital policy, Susan replied firmly. We will come get you once she is settled in an exam room for the first time since the incident. I was separated from my father's controlling presence. The relief was immediate, though the pain remained intense. A technician named Marcus helped position me for the x-rays, each movement excruciating. Try to hold still, he said gently. I know it hurts, but we need clear images. When he examined the first images, his expression changed. I'm going to take a few more, he said, repositioning the machine after several more images. I was wheeled to an exam room instead of calling for my father immediately. A doctor entered alone. Dr. Evans, according to his badge, was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a serious demeanor. Natalie, he said, pulling up a stool beside the gurney. I am Dr. Evans. I have reviewed your x-rays, and I have some concerns. My heart began to race. You have 3 fractured ribs on your right side and a hairline fracture in your right wrist, he continued. But what concerns me is the pattern of these injuries. He pulled up the images on a screen, pointing. These fractures are not consistent with a simple fall downstairs. There are multiple impact points here, here, and here that suggest direct trauma after the fall. Tears welled in my eyes, Natalie, Dr. Evans said gently. Hospital policy requires that I speak with you alone first. Is there anything about how these injuries occurred that you would like to tell me outside the door? I could hear my father's voice rising, demanding to see me. A nurse was calmly but firmly refusing. My father is very concerned about our family's reputation, I said quietly. Dr. Evans nodded. I'm concerned about your safety and well-being. Whatever you tell me will be handled with appropriate confidentiality, but I need to know the truth to treat you properly. In that moment, with my father's influence temporarily blocked by hospital protocol, and faced with medical evidence that contradicted the cover story, I felt the weight of decades of silence pressing against the dam of truth. There is something else, Dr. Evans added, scrolling through the images. We can see evidence of previous injuries, older hairline fractures that have healed. Has this happened before the dam broke? My sister pushed me down the stairs. I said, my voice barely above a whisper, and then she kicked me multiple times while I was on the ground. Dr. Evans nodded, his expression neutral but kind. Thank you for telling me, Natalie. Has your sister been physically violent with you before? The question opened a floodgate. Years of minimized incidents explained away bruises and accidents that were anything but came rushing to the surface. Yes, I admitted throughout our lives, but it was always dismissed as normal sibling fighting. My parents always protected her. Dr. Evans made notes in my chart. And your parents witnessed this incident. They came down after she had already kicked me several times. I told them what happened, but they immediately started making excuses, saying I tripped. My father insisted on the story about answering the phone on our way here. He set down his pen and looked directly at me. Natalie, I need to explain something to you. As a medical professional, I am a mandated reporter. That means when I see evidence of possible abuse, I am legally required to report it to the appropriate authorities. My stomach dropped. You mean like the police? Yes, and in cases involving adults to social services as well. This is not optional for me, and it is designed to protect people in vulnerable situations. Panic rose in my chest. My father is a lawyer. He will be furious. Your medical care and safety are my primary concerns. Not your father's reaction, Dr. Evans said firmly. Based on your x-rays and what you have told me, I'm going to bring in our social worker to speak with you. Would that be all right? I nodded simultaneously, terrified and relieved. In the meantime, we need to treat your injuries, he continued. I will prescribe pain medication, and we will need to wrap your ribs. The wrist fracture is minor, but will require a brace. While a nurse administered pain medication, Dr. Evans stepped out. Minutes later, he returned with a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and a gentle demeanor. Natalie, this is Miss Lawrence, one of our hospital's social workers. She would like to speak with you if that is all right. I nodded, the medication beginning to dull the sharp edges of my pain. Hello, Natalie, Miss Lawrence said, pulling up a chair. Dr. Evans has shared his concerns with me. I understand this is a difficult situation, but I want to help ensure your safety for the next 30 minutes. I told Miss Lawrence everything about the incident and the long history leading up to it. She took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Her expression professional but compassionate. Thank you for sharing this with us, she said. When I finished what you have described as a clear pattern of domestic violence, specifically sibling abuse with parental enabling, I want you to know that you have options and resources available to you. She explained that a police report would need to be filed, but that I would have support throughout the process. She also mentioned temporary housing options. If I did not feel safe returning home, what will happen to my sister, I asked. That will depend on several factors, including whether you wish to press charges. But our immediate concern is your safety and medical care. While Miss Lawrence was explaining next steps, a commotion erupted in the hallway. My father's voice, no longer contained, echoed through the corridor. This is ridiculous! I demand to see my daughter immediately! Do you know who I am in this community? Dr. Evans excused himself to address the situation through the partially open door. I could hear him speaking calmly but firmly. Mr. Hamilton, your daughter is receiving necessary medical care. We have protocols we must follow. What protocols? I brought her in for a fall, and you have separated her from her family for over an hour, sir. Based on the x-rays and our examination, we have concerns about the nature of your daughter's injuries that require further investigation. A moment of silence followed. Then my father's voice, suddenly lower and more controlled. What exactly are you implying, doctor? I am not implying anything. I am stating that your daughter's injuries are inconsistent with the accident you described. And as medical professionals, we are required by law to investigate such inconsistencies. This is outrageous. I want to speak to your supervisor immediately. Their voices moved away, but the confrontation was clearly escalating. Miss Lawrence touched my arm gently. This reaction is very common in families where abuse has been normalized, she said. It does not mean you have done anything wrong by telling the truth. 20 minutes later, a security guard was stationed outside my room, and Dr. Evans returned with news that my mother had arrived at the hospital. Your father became quite agitated when informed that we had contacted the authorities, he explained. Hospital security had to escort him to a separate waiting area. The reality of what was happening began to sink in. For the first time in my life, someone had looked at the evidence and believed me. Over my family's carefully constructed narrative, Officer Garcia arrived shortly after a female police officer with a no-nonsense demeanor who took my statement with professional efficiency. The X-rays were discussed as evidence photographs taken of visible bruising and a case number assigned. "We will need to question your sister and parents as well," Officer Garcia explained. "Based on your statement and the medical evidence, there are grounds for assault charges. The medication, emotional exhaustion, and reality of having finally spoken the truth combined to overwhelm me. As the officer left, I began to sob, years of suppressed pain finding release. Miss Lawrence sat with me through this storm of emotion, offering tissues and quiet support. "The hardest part is often right at the beginning," she said, "but you have taken the first step toward breaking a dangerous cycle. That takes immense courage." When I was finally settled in a hospital room for overnight observation, Miss Lawrence provided me with information on restraining orders, victim advocacy services, and temporary housing options. "You do not have to decide everything tonight," she assured me, "but I want you to know you have options beyond returning to that house." As she left, she handed me her card. "Call me directly if you need anything. You are not alone in this anymore." Those words, simple as they were, felt revolutionary. For the first time in my life, the truth about my family was seen, acknowledged, and responded to appropriately. The X-rays had revealed not just my broken bones, but the broken system I had been living in for 27 years. The hospital released me the following afternoon with prescriptions, a wrist brace, and strict instructions for rest and follow-up care. My friend Zoe, whom I had called that morning, arrived to pick me up. Her face tight with concern and barely contained anger. "I cannot believe this," she said, as she helped me carefully into her car. "I mean, I can believe it because you have told me stories before. But seeing you like this, having Zoe there, solid and supportive, made everything feel marginally less overwhelming." She drove me to her apartment in Stamford, about 20 minutes from my parents' house, where she had already prepared her guest room for my recovery. "You can stay as long as you need," she insisted. "Months, years, whatever." The first call from my mother came that evening. Zoe handed me the phone with a supportive squeeze of my shoulder. "Natalie, this has gotten completely out of hand." My mother began without preamble. "The police came to the house today and questioned all of us. Your father is beside himself." "What did Vanessa tell them?" I asked. "She explained that it was an unfortunate accident that you have blown out of proportion." My mother replied, her voice strained. "Natalie, you need to come home so we can sort this out as a family, like you sorted out her pushing me down the stairs or the countless other incidents over the years. You are being melodramatic. Siblings fight. That is normal. But involving the police making these wild accusations, this could ruin your sister's life. Is that what you want?" The familiar guilt trip washed over me, but this time wrapped in bandages and medicated for pain. I found it easier to resist. "What about my life, Mom? Does that matter to you at all?" She sighed dramatically. "Of course it does. We took you in when you had nowhere else to go, did not we? We have always been there for you." "I have to go," I said, unable to continue the conversation. The doctor said I need rest. The calls continued over the next few days, alternating between my mother's emotional manipulation and my father's barely contained threats. "You need to drop this nonsense immediately," he told me. 3 days after the incident, I have spoken to colleagues who assure me these kinds of cases are nearly impossible to prove. "All you are doing is dragging this family through unnecessary public humiliation." "She broke 3 of my ribs, Dad." "Accidents happen," he replied dismissively. "But what you are doing is deliberate. Think very carefully about the consequences of continuing down this path." The consequences became apparent quickly. My car, still registered in my father's name, was reported stolen and had to be returned. My personal belongings at their house became hostages, with my parents refusing to allow Zoe to collect them for me. My cell phone stopped working when I was removed from the family plan. Zoe helped me get a new phone, and I used what remained of my savings to retain a lawyer recommended by the victim advocate assigned to my case. "They are trying to isolate and intimidate you," my lawyer Catherine Wilson explained during our first meeting. "This is textbook behavior in family violence cases." The intimidation extended beyond my immediate family. My grandmother was flown in from Florida, calling me in tears, begging me to stop this madness and come home. Family friends reached out with concerned messages that carried thinly veiled judgment. "We are all so worried about you," Natalie said. My mother's friend Barbara in a voicemail. "Your parents are devastated. Whatever disagreement you had with your sister, surely it can be resolved without all this legal unpleasantness." The pressure took its toll. I experienced panic attacks, waking in the night, gasping for breath, convinced I was falling down the stairs again. I questioned myself constantly, wondering if I had overreacted, if I was destroying my family over what they all insisted was just an accident. "This is exactly what they want," Zoe reminded me during one particularly bad night, sitting with me on her couch at 3 a.m. "They want you to doubt yourself so you will drop the case and everything can go back to the way it was." "Maybe that would be easier," I whispered. "Easier for whom? Not for you." And what happens the next time Vanessa loses her temper? She was right, but the weight of standing against my entire family was crushing. What made it worse was learning that my father was using his legal connections to delay proceedings, filing motions and continuances that stretched out the process. Meanwhile, my mother had begun a subtle campaign among their social circle, suggesting that my mental health issues had led me to misinterpret what had happened. "Natalie has always been highly strung," I was told she said at her garden club meeting. "We are just so worried about her state of mind." 6 weeks after the incident, prosecutor Jennifer Williams called me into her office to discuss the case. With my ribs slowly healing and my wrist out of the brace, the physical evidence of the assault was fading. But the prosecutor had new information. "We have been looking into medical records," she explained. "With your permission, we subpoenaed your history from various hospitals and doctors in the area." She opened a file on her desk. There were 3 previous emergency room visits during your adolescence. A broken finger when you were 13 that you claimed happened during basketball practice. A concussion at 16 from supposedly falling off your bike, and a sprained ankle at 17 from tripping on the stairs. I felt sick remembering each incident. The basketball story had been my father's invention. After Vanessa slammed my finger in a door during an argument, the bike story covered a push that sent me into a coffee table and the stairs. Well, that had actually been stairs, just not an accidental fall. In each case, your parents were present during the examination, and in each case, your father declined further investigation or follow-up. Jennifer continued, "Dr. Evans was right to be concerned about a pattern. Additional evidence emerged from unexpected sources. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Sanderson, contacted the prosecutor's office after hearing about the case through community gossip. She reported witnessing concerning interactions between Vanessa and me years ago, including an incident where Vanessa had threatened me in the school parking lot. A former neighbor, Mr. Peters, came forward with an account of hearing what sounded like physical altercations, and my father demanding, 'Everyone keep it down before the neighbors hear.' Most surprising was a call from Jake, Vanessa's ex-boyfriend, whose breakup had precipitated the attack. He described witnessing Vanessa's violent outbursts, including one directed at him, that had contributed to his decision to end the relationship. She threw a wine glass at my head when I was 15 minutes late picking her up," he told the prosecutor. "It just missed me and shattered against the wall. Her parents were there, and they just cleaned it up like it was nothing unusual." As the evidence mounted, so did my anxiety about the public nature of the case in our small community. Word had spread quickly, and I felt exposed in a way I never had before. But alongside the discomfort came something unexpected validation. For the first time, my experience was being taken seriously, documented, investigated, and believed. "We have a strong case," Jennifer assured me. "The medical evidence, witness statements, and history all support your account. But I want to prepare you for the fact that your family will likely continue to fight this aggressively." She was right. The battle was far from over. But for the first time, I was not fighting it alone. The court date was set for 3 months after the incident. In the intervening time, I had found a job at a small local publishing company in Stamford, moved from Zoe's guest room into a modest studio apartment, and begun weekly sessions with a therapist specializing in family trauma. "You have been conditioned your entire life to believe that your needs and safety are less important than your sister's feelings and your family's reputation," Dr. Barnes explained during one session. Unlearning that will take time. As the hearing approached, my anxiety intensified. The thought of facing my family in court, of publicly challenging the narrative they had maintained for decades, was terrifying. Jennifer Williams, the prosecutor, met with me several times to prepare me for what to expect. "The courtroom will be arranged to ensure your safety," she assured me. "You will not have to sit near your sister or parents when you testify. Just focus on answering the questions truthfully. You do not need to look at them if that is difficult." The day arrived with a physical weight of dread. Zoe drove me to the courthouse, squeezing my hand before we exited the car. "Remember why you are doing this," she said. "Not for revenge, but for justice and your own safety." The courtroom was smaller than I had imagined from television shows, but no less intimidating. Jennifer met us in the hallway, professional and reassuring in her navy blue suit. She guided me to our table on one side of the room, pointing out the separate entrance through which my family would arrive. "They are already here with their attorney," she said. "Are you ready?" I nodded, not trusting my voice when they entered. The sight of them hit me like a physical blow. My father, impeccable in his best courtroom suit, looking confident and slightly annoyed, as if this were a minor inconvenience in his day. My mother, perfectly coiffed and dressed in subdued beige, projecting appropriate concern. And Vanessa in a conservative blue dress I had never seen before. Her expression a careful mask of confusion and hurt. They looked exactly like what they had always pretended to be, a respectable family bewildered by unfair accusations. For a moment, doubt crept in. How could I possibly prevail against this perfect facade? The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Morrison, called the court to order. The initial proceedings felt surreal legal terminology washing over me as I tried to stay focused. When the medical evidence was presented, I forced myself to look at the X-ray images projected on a screen. The stark white lines of my fractured ribs, a validation of my truth. Dr. Evans testified first, his medical expertise lending weight to the case. He described the inconsistency between my injuries and the accidental fall initially reported. In my professional opinion, these fractures show multiple impact points, consistent with the patient's account of being pushed downstairs and then kicked repeatedly, he stated. Furthermore, the older healed fractures visible in the scans suggest a pattern of similar injuries over time. My father's attorney, a colleague from his firm named Gregory Phillips, cross-examined Dr. Evans aggressively, suggesting alternative explanations for both the recent and historical injuries. Is it not possible that someone with a history of clumsiness might have multiple accidents over the years? And could not the additional fractures you noted be from how she landed during the fall? Dr. Evans remained unshaken. The fracture patterns are distinct and specific. The rib fractures in particular show 3 separate impact points, with directional force consistent with frontal kicks, not a tumbling fall. When it was my turn to testify, I kept my eyes fixed on Jennifer, drawing strength from her calm presence. I recounted the events of that night, then responded to questions about the history of Vanessa's violence and my parents' enabling responses. "Why did you not report these incidents?" before Jennifer asked gently. "I was taught from a very young age that what happened in our family stayed in our family." I explained any time I tried to speak up, I was told I was exaggerating or being dramatic. Eventually, I started to believe that maybe I was the problem. When Gregory Phillips began his cross-examination, his approach was precisely what my father would have instructed: discredit, minimize, and suggest ulterior motives. "Miss Hamilton, is it not true that you moved back home after failing to maintain employment in Boston?" he began. "Objection. Relevance," Jennifer interjected. "I'm establishing the witness's state of mind and potential motivations," Phillips argued. "I will allow it, but keep it focused." Counselor Judge Morrison ruled for the next 30 minutes. Phillips attempted to paint me as jealous, unstable, and vindictive, seeking revenge against a more successful sister. Each question was designed to trigger the same self-doubt I had experienced throughout my life. "Would you not agree that sibling rivalry has characterized your relationship with your sister from childhood?" "No," I replied, finding my voice. "What characterized our relationship was her aggression and my parents' refusal to address it. And yet, you have no evidence of this alleged pattern of behavior beyond your own claims, correct?" Before Jennifer could object, Judge Morrison intervened, said Mr. Phillips. We have heard testimony from Dr. Evans regarding historical injuries, as well as statements from multiple witnesses that corroborate Miss Hamilton's account. Phillips adjusted quickly. My point, Your Honor, is that these alleged historical incidents were never reported, suggesting they were not viewed as significant by anyone involved, including the plaintiff, until this convenient opportunity for attention arose. The questioning continued, each insinuation more cutting than the last. By the time I stepped down, I felt exhausted, but oddly unbowed. For the first time, I had told my truth without being silenced or dismissed. Vanessa testified next, her performance masterful. Tears welled at appropriate moments as she described her deep love for me and her shock and confusion at my accusations. We had an argument, yes, she admitted. Natalie was saying hurtful things about my breakup. I went to talk to her later to clear the air, but she was angry. She tried to push past me, lost her balance, and fell. I was horrified. I ran down to help her, but she immediately started screaming that I had pushed her. Our parents came running, and she just kept accusing me. Her account was smooth practiced and eerily believable. I watched my parents nodding subtly as she spoke, their support evident in every gesture. What Vanessa and my parents could not have anticipated was Maria Vasquez, our former housekeeper, who had worked for our family for 15 years before retiring 2 years earlier. Jennifer had located her during witness interviews, but had kept her testimony in reserve. Maria entered the courtroom with dignity, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, her expression resolute. She took the oath and sat down, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Mrs. Vasquez, can you describe what you observed regarding the relationship between Natalie and Vanessa Hamilton during your employment with the family? Jennifer asked. I saw many things over those years, Maria replied. Her accent slight, but her English precise. Miss Vanessa had a temper from when she was small. When she was angry, she would hit, push, throw things. I saw her push Natalie down and kick her many times over the years. She described specific incidents. Vanessa shoving me into a glass cabinet when she was 14, resulting in cuts that my mother treated at home. Vanessa throwing a heavy bookend that narrowly missed my head when she was 17. Vanessa pushing me down the same staircase when I was 22, visiting from college. After an argument about borrowed clothes. Did the parents witness any of these incidents? Jennifer asked. Many times, yes. Mr. Hamilton would say, girls enough. But Miss Vanessa was never punished. Mrs. Hamilton would tell Natalie not to provoke her sister once I suggested they get help for Miss Vanessa's anger. And the next day, Mr. Hamilton reminded me that my employment agreement included confidential. Phillips attempted to discredit Maria on cross-examination, suggesting she had been fired and was seeking revenge. But records confirmed her retirement had been voluntary and included a generous bonus from the family. Why are you coming forward now after all this time? Phillips demanded. Maria looked directly at my parents for the first time, because when I saw the news about Natalie in the hospital with broken bones, I knew that someday, if nothing changes, that girl could be killed. And I could not live with that on my conscience. Her testimony shifted the entire atmosphere of the courtroom. Judge Morrison, who had been taking notes throughout, studied my family with new scrutiny. After brief closing arguments, Judge Morrison announced she would issue her ruling after a short recess. Those 20 minutes were the longest of my life. Zoe sitting beside me, her presence a silent support when Judge Morrison returned. Her expression was grave. Based on the testimony and evidence presented, I find clear and convincing evidence of a pattern of domestic violence perpetrated by Vanessa Hamilton against Natalie Hamilton, with concerning evidence of parental enabling that created an unsafe living environment. She issued a 1-year restraining order prohibiting Vanessa from coming within 500 feet of me, my residence, or my workplace. She ordered Vanessa to complete a 26-week anger management program and undergo psychological evaluation and treatment. Finally, she referred the case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. Miss Hamilton, she addressed me directly. The court recognizes your courage in breaking a long-standing cycle of abuse. I strongly encourage you to continue with counseling and to maintain the boundaries necessary for your safety and well-being. As the gavel fell, I felt a strange mixture of vindication and grief. Across the room, my family sat in stunned silence. The facade finally cracked beyond repair. 1 year passed since the court hearing. My physical injuries healed long ago. though occasional twinges in my ribs still serve as bodily reminders of that night. The emotional healing has been slower, more complex, but equally real. My studio apartment has become a true home, small but entirely mine. I painted the walls a soft sage green, hung art that I love, and filled bookshelves with volumes that nurture rather than diminish me. For the first time in my life, I live in a space where I never have to brace for criticism or danger. Dr. Winters, my therapist, has been instrumental in my recovery. Our weekly sessions have helped me understand the dysfunctional dynamics that shaped my childhood and early adulthood. What you experienced was a classic golden child scapegoat dynamic. She explained early in our work together. Your sister was idealized while you were assigned the role of problem child, regardless of your actual behavior. Through therapy, I learned to recognize how this warped family system affected my self-perception, relationships, and choices. I uncovered patterns of apologizing for needs, minimizing my own pain, and accepting unacceptable treatment because it seemed normal based on my upbringing. Healing does not mean forgetting, or even necessarily forgiving. Dr. Winters told me during a particularly difficult session, it means reclaiming your story and your worth professionally. I found unexpected fulfillment at Greenfield Publishing. What began as a stopgap job has become a career I value. My editor position allows me to help authors shape their stories, and 6 months ago, I was promoted to senior editor with a team of my own. Your attention to authentic voice and emotional truth is what sets you apart. My boss said during my performance review, the irony was not lost on me that the very sensitivity my family had marked has become my professional strength. Financial independence has been a crucial part of my recovery. I opened bank accounts solely in my name, built an emergency fund, and learned to budget carefully. The security of knowing I can support myself, come what may, has been profoundly healing. My friendship with Zoe deepened through the crisis. Her unwavering support showed me what healthy relationships actually look like. You never have to earn the right to be treated with basic decency. She reminded me countless times when old doubts crept in. I have begun dating again, cautiously. 3 months ago, I met Daniel, a graphic designer with kind eyes and a genuine laugh at a publishing event. Our relationship is still new, but his respect for my boundaries and interest in my thoughts feel like a revelation. After years of diminishment, I like who you are, he told me on our 3rd date. Not who you might become or who I wish you were, just you as you are right now. I nearly cried into my pasta. Contact with my family has been limited and carefully structured. After the restraining order expired, my parents reached out suggesting family reconciliation. Through therapy, I developed the strength to set clear conditions for any relationship moving forward. I need acknowledgement of what actually happened, not just on that night, but throughout our lives. I wrote in a carefully worded email, without that foundation of truth, there can be no healthy relationship. Their response was predictably mixed. My father still struggles to fully acknowledge the reality of the situation, preferring vague references to unfortunate family discord. My mother has shown more willingness to at least discuss specific incidents, though she often slides back into minimizing or excusing them. We now meet occasionally for coffee in public places, brief interactions with clear beginnings and endings. I leave these meetings emotionally drained, but also with a growing sense of myself as an adult, equal rather than a perpetual child seeking approval. Vanessa completed her court-ordered anger management program in therapy. According to my parents, we have not spoken directly, but she sent a card on my birthday with a simple message. I'm working on myself. I hope you are well. It was neither apology nor reconciliation, but perhaps an acknowledgement of sorts. The X-rays that exposed the truth about my family have become a metaphor in my mind for the power of seeing beneath surfaces. Just as those images revealed the hidden damage to my bones, the events they set in motion exposed the harmful patterns that had been invisible to outside observers for decades. I have redefined family for myself. It now means people who respect my boundaries, celebrate my successes without envy, support me in difficulty without judgment, and treat me with consistent kindness. By this definition, my chosen family of friends has proved far more reliable than the one I was born into. My voice, silenced for so long, has become one of my most valued possessions. I have begun writing personal essays about family dynamics and healing published anonymously for now, but perhaps someday under my own name. The feedback from readers who recognize their own experiences in my words has been deeply meaningful. The journey from victim to advocate has not been linear. There are still days when self-doubt creeps in, when the old family narratives replay in my mind. But these episodes grow less frequent and less powerful as I continue to build a life based on truth rather than appearances. I no longer believe that family loyalty requires silence in the face of harm. True loyalty means wanting the best for one another, which sometimes requires difficult truths and appropriate consequences. Sometimes healing requires breaking before rebuilding can begin like a bone that must be properly set to heal. Straight relationship friendships sometimes need clear breaks before they can possibly become healthy. Have you ever had to stand up to family for your own well-being? Or do you know someone who has been through something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I hope my story helps anyone facing similar struggles to recognize that they deserve safety and respect. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength through difficult truths. Thank you for listening. And remember, your voice matters, and your truth deserves to be heard.